Okay, back at it from Pizza Republica in Landmark. The Modern Eater Show continues. We're about to release the Kraken. We have a bunch of hungry guys ready to go. This is the new items on the menu, George. It looks fantastic. Chef Mike did a great job.
Chef Mike crushed it.
All right, not Tracy, but Danny, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good to see you. The Grapejuice Group. We're going to talk wine here in just a second. And, of course, my friend James Doxson, Chef James Doxson here with us, too. All right, everybody jump in. Let's grab some delicious food. And I got to go right to the ravioli because this looks fantastic. I'm going to grab one of these. What are you going to grab, James?
I'm going to grab a little of everything, I think.
I think you should.
It looks amazing. Look at all these springtime flavors and colors.
So, George, you do tastings fairly often as well, too, right? You bring in influencers to talk about the food and those types of things.
We do. You know, we start with our staff, and they have the best things to say, and then we try it out with all of our guests, and then we try it out with our friends and vendors, and then I'll invite some Instagram people in, and we'll taste with that. Because to me, the more feedback you can get, there's always a little tweak you can make here, a little tweak you can make there.
For me at the Modern Eater Show, it's all about community. It's all about local businesses doing business with other local businesses. We have the guys in the next segment from the Farm Box who are going to talk about some delicious products that they give you guys here.
Best mushrooms I've ever seen.
These are pretty cool. So we'll be doing that as well.
This is amazing.
A little bit of food. What do you got there?
I have a little of everything. I had the crab cake, and it was like having happiness in my mouth.
Look, speaking of that, Danny, let's sit down. We'll have a little bit of wine. First of all, talk about the Grapejuice Group.
Well, Grapejuice Group, we are a Denver, Colorado-based national importer, and we work with European wineries. So our wines are available all over the United States in all 50 states, and we just love wine and we love people. So we try to bring hidden discoveries and fun things to people that normally they wouldn't have access to.
When you work with a guy like George Eater, who's very particular, he knows his taste, he knows what he wants, and he knows his restaurants. George, you've said time and time again, I carry all Italian wines.
100% Italian.
Yeah.
And they're spectacular. To this day, the best Italian wine find I've had has been from Danny.
Oh, thank you, George.
Yep.
Explain. This is the wine you turned me on to, right?
The Daniele Conterno Barbera. I think when we first met, we brought Bolognese and I brought Conterno's Barbera.
Yep.
Because to me, for the bang for the buck is what you're looking for in wine. Like, who can make the best wine that drinks like $100 bottle for $20?
I'm glad you said that. What does a $100 bottle of wine drink like?
Like heaven.
This is what
normally, this, he brought me a $20 bottle to drink that way.
I want to ask you about this, Danny, and I do this to anybody who's a wine aficionado, and if I wasn't terrified of Bobby Stuckey, I'd ask him the same question.
I love Bobby.
Is wine subjective as far as pricing goes? Now, I know that there's a lot of things to have to do with, well, the climate was wonderful that year, and this side of the slope had this much exposure, and we had plentiful water. Or how do you explain wine and the price variance?
That's a great question. Wine and quality as it relates to price is something that drives almost any importer.
Absolutely.
In their business model. So we say, all right, you take a wine like Pinot Grigio that there's plenty of. So and you're presented with dozens and dozens of them. So how does this wine react to the price and the quality? And so really it sounds simple, but it's really hard to do because wine is made in almost every region in the world. And you look at Italy and it's almost every corner there's a vineyard. And so how do I find that wine that is phenomenal, that is so underpriced for what it is? Price sometimes really gets out of control when a wine becomes incredibly popular because they can't just increase production by 10 times if they're going to keep the authenticity of it. So what drives the price up? Scarcity, popularity, and that wine gets more and more and more expensive. Like if we were sitting here in
Does it start out at one price and then work its way?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's like water finding its own level then, right?
Absolutely. If we were all sitting here in 1987 and we were opening a bottle of Sassicaia, George, what do you think we'd pay for that? Like $40?
$40.
Yeah. Now?
It's $400.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So it's supply, it's demand, it's how it drinks, and then it's the story behind it as well. So I get beer. I get spirits, and spirits a little bit more complicated, how you barrel age things, and you can tell the story about the ingredients and certain nuances that are done during the aging process. And the price point seems to be fairly consistent with that until you start getting into collector's items and that kind of thing. Wine, to me, and again, one of the best explanations that I've ever had as far as wine goes, but at the end of the day, it has to be really good. What makes a really good wine?
I think honesty. You know, there's a lot that you can do with a wine. Sometimes wines get to be like Dr. Pepper. You have no idea what's in. I remember growing up as a kid saying, "Oh, if we had all these ingredients, we could make a Dr. Pepper ourselves," and you can't recognize any of them, right? I like wines that are honest, that don't have food coloring. Wine should never look like Barney purple.
Nope.
Barney the dinosaur purple. It should never look like it. Doesn't exist in the world. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of wines that are that purple, right?
Sure.
That's not real.
Yeah.
That's chemistry, and that's okay. I mean, I don't knock anybody for liking a Dr. Pepper. It's good stuff, but knowing what goes into that is important. I like honest wines. I like wines that are made and they're different every single vintage, because every vintage gives you something different, right? So I like wines that are true to their vintage, that are honest, that don't have a whole lot in them other than grapes.
Straightforward ingredients.
Ingredients.
Love it. Okay.
And that to me is where my passion lies.
I love it. Okay, so we can't talk wine without having wine, right? You brought some wines that obviously you're passionate about. You mind just taking us on a little educational tour right here?
Yeah, I mean, George was talking about the Daniele Conterno Barbera, which I don't have here, but he has over there. I love that. Famous family, young guy making great, honest wines. The wines that we brought here today, though, are Poggio del Moro. So Poggio del Moro is like one of my favorite new discoveries. Tatiana is the owner and the winemaker, the head of wine. She is this amazing woman that is making wine in a very male-dominated region in Italy for winemaking. And she is just slaying dragons. She's funny, she's fun, she's passionate, she's making natural wines, and she's making it in an area called Chianciano Terme.
Okay.
And that's kind of like the Sedona of Tuscany.
Perfect, okay.
Very spiritual area, these beautiful streams that are going through that are with sulfur water, and the mud in the bottom. Since the days of Romans, they've been sticking their feet in there, and they have this gray mud, and you cover your whole body with it, and then you feel like a different person after that. And she's making wine in that region. There's not a lot of producers in Chianciano Terme. So she makes this wine. This is really cool. This is like all the rage. This is called Pet Nat. This is Pet Nat. And this is awesome because this is like, say you had, Pet Nat likes to do that. Say you had your favorite beer in the world, your favorite champagne in the world, and your favorite white wine in the world, and they got together, and this was their love child.
Yeah. Okay.
And that is Pet Nat. It's all natural fermentation in the bottle.
And I see some of that fermentation.
And you can see it right there in the bottom
Yeah.
here. Beautiful. Wonderful expression of supernatural wine. Now try it. And if my description was wrong, school me. Tell me it was wrong. Cheers.
These are on my spring wine menu.
Yeah.
Man.
This is the coolest thing you're going to taste this year.
These are hot right now.
They're super hot. Like, we tell people we have a great natural Pet Nat, and literally in the United States, our entire allocation for the country is 168 cases. That's nothing. Most wines are 20,000, 30,000 cases.
That's a party.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so much flavor in a glass.
Right?
That's like if Sunday was fermented.
Yeah.
That's what it would taste like. Am I wrong?
I
mean, that's pretty good. It's story time with Danny Keefe, and I really, really enjoy this. Just taking a walk through wine, and really, when it comes to wine, that's what you're experiencing, and those are the people that I want to be around when drinking wines. Is let's talk about the story of the wine, the people behind it, the makers, the purveyors, the land, the terroir, all of the things that come to play when having a delicious wine.
Super fun.
Cheers to this. Tell us another story.
That's what we love.
I'll tell you another story. So her white wines, so she has a couple different, you see this one, Poggio del Moro, the Rosso, and
What's the
Chianti.
price point of this, just to ask?
Here it's going to be
The Pet Nat's probably $50.
$50 a bottle. Yeah.
In retail, it's probably, what, 25?
No, it'll be about 30, 35 retail.
30, 35 retail?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so what's
Good
great
deal
is-
here.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chef?
On the wine?
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm a huge fan of sparkling wine. Basically anything with bubbles.
Yeah.
So
How am I going to feel the next day with this?
You're going to feel great. It's low alcohol and it's natural.
Got it.
So there's nothing
that.
artificial in there. So many times people say, "Oh, I love wine, but it gives me a headache."
Yeah.
And I say two things. Well, one, don't drink 4 bottles. That'll give you a headache. 2, drink a lot of water while you're doing it. Or 3, what's in your wine?
Yeah.
Maybe there's some crazy chemical
Sugars,
you're having a
sulfites.
reaction
Yeah.
to, right?
yeah, I like that. It's not, it doesn't have all those excess sugars. It's naturally fermented. I love it.
Isn't that fun?
Love it.
Story time, Danny. Let's go.
Yeah,
So
Danny and I have done a lot of fun
I
stuff since
can-
COVID started.
Yeah, we have.
We've had some COVID wine days.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And open up some spectacular bottles of wine just to alleviate some of the stress of what's been going on in the world.
We've been having so much fun.
Yeah, we've had some,
I
we've had some
wasn't
great wine
invited.
days, and Danny's been like a wine mentor and a great friend through all of this. And I want to, cheers to you for
Thank
being
you.
awesome.
I can't cheers with an empty glass.
You got to
There
cheers
we
with
go.
the evil, eh?
Yeah.
Because
Danny, you let me
Oh,
cheers with an
there's a
empty
little
glass,
bit.
though?
We got to redo that. We got to redo
Oh,
that.
no,
you
there
can't
was
enjoy great food without great friends
wine.
Yes.
Cheers.
and great wine.
Absolutely.
Cheers to you, Jim.
Fully agree.
That's part of life right there.
Fully agree. And
So
this-
the other fun story is, so she has kind of 2 lines. One, her classic line, her Rosso and her Chianti. I mean, she goes through so much to make these. Like this Rosso is 4 different varietals, all of them fermented at a different temperature, which is perfect for that varietal, and then blended together at the end.
Where is this vineyard?
This is in Chianciano Terme in Tuscany, southern Tuscany.
Yeah. What camera are we? Danny wants to go to the vineyard. I can tell already.
Let's go to Tuscany. Come on. Keep getting vaccinated. Let's go to Tuscany.
That's right.
So she has 2 lines. One is she calls her flower power line, the Evole, which is a play on the word love in Italian, Evole. And this is a blend. This is awesome. This
Is this
a
what
blend.
we're having right here?
This is what we're having
Okay.
here. This blend is as authentic as you could get. Like, she's not trying to just make a varietal that everyone knows about. She wants to make Evole. I was about to say she wants to make love. Maybe that's inappropriate. She wants to produce love in a bottle. It's Grapejuice, it's Trebbiano, and it's Malvasia. And it's such floral happiness right here.
Now, gosh, I probably even shouldn't go down this road, but demographically, are there certain wines that you see certain demographics that like middle-aged women versus middle-aged men, or young ladies versus young
sure.
men? Okay, good. I think I said that well to not
You
say.
did.
Okay, how would you explain the taste throughout different palates and age groups and genders? That's actually
question.
pretty good.
Yeah,
That's a great question. Evole really is best for the demographic of happy people.
Of happy people.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
This is a wine for happy people. If you're
Yeah.
angry, you're not going to like this wine. If you're a happy person, you're going to love this wine. Think about it. Get your nose.
I know.
Let me see if I like it. I'm
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
so
let
angry.
me see how happy I am.
And I'll give you
I'm so
the
angry
secret.
right now.
I'll give you the secret to figuring out any wine, and you only need to worry about one thing.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Greg, what is the best wine in the world?
The best way is
The best
that
wine in the
subjectively.
entire world. What is the best wine in the entire world?
Well, I figure that's a trick question. Ask James.
Anybody can answer this question. What's the best?
The one you like.
That's
one
it.
you
The,
love.
the one you love. Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
one that you like
The one that
best.
you're drinking right
That's
now.
it.
Like
Wine
that
is-
you love to drink.
Wine's so subjective that you don't need to get caught up in all of these different profiles. All you got to worry
I-
about,
I
do
get
you
it.
like it for you.
Right.
And
But-
that's it.
Okay, but back to the original question that I asked, demographically and gender-wise, are there certain tastes for the palate that they're drawn to? And, I mean, because you think of a rosé. I mean, that's a girl's wine, no?
Rosé is one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I love
I
rosé.
love rosé.
I love rosé.
I don't know.
Help
you
me
know,
out here, guys. Is there
there's a
anything to
lot
what
of-
I'm trying
I
to
lot
think
of
what he's
study.
trying to,
Yeah.
and I think what Greg's getting at is, it's something that I've noticed, and tell me if I'm on the right path, is a lot of it, when people are searching out to buy a wine, actually buy a wine, a lot of it is label.
Yeah.
What does it look like, right? And of course, price point has to do with it. But yeah, and a lot of it is that stigma or societal norms that I would say, like, oh, I like a Chardonnay with a pretty label. There's generally a demographic associated with that.
How about like a strong, rich red?
Or a super rich red,
Yeah.
I like,
with a cleaver on.
I've had people that love both. I've had very burly gentlemen that love a rosé, and I've had very petite women that want the biggest tannin gripping Sagrantino you could ever
But
find.
do you see how you drew that very contrasting parallel to those two demographics?
People
so
have
there are.
different tastes.
I get it. I get it. Thought it was just an interesting
But you
question.
know what?
Don't
It
hurt
is a
me.
You want a fun one, Greg?
Yeah.
At Pizza Republica,
What's your number one?
there's
SKU?
been days where we have not had one male guest in the building.
Let me know those days.
It
Yeah,
happens,
yeah.
happens a lot on Thursdays.
I'll swing by.
Ladies' night.
And we have a primarily female clientele, and they'll let us know what they like and they don't like.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we gear some of the lighter, healthier, fresher flavors to our female guests, because that's, they're the decision makers. They're the ones that are saying, "Hey, honey, let's go here, let's go there."
And you do a frosé machine in the warmer
Do a
months,
frosé
right?
with a great Aglianico
Love
that I
that.
get from Danny.
I'll be here.
Yeah.
This Alianico is from this tiny little village that I stumbled upon by accident and fell in love with this family, and I brought it back, and George was one of the first people that I talked to about it. I'm like, George, I brought these back from Italy. Let's sit here and drink it. And we had one of our little outside moments, and remember that? I opened up the red, white, and the rosé, and we're like, and George is like, oh my God, Danny.
Then we pitched on a rosé machine together.
Yeah. This
And
little
we
family in
went
Basilicata bought George a frosé machine, and they're like, George, this is great. We love it. And this is, they sent us pictures of themselves, like they're so excited about their rosé from this tiny little village in Basilicata is being enjoyed by
our
so many
frosé.
people. It's their
That's
rosé.
so cool.
Yeah.
I think we need to have an ongoing segment that's story time with Danny Keefe.
I
Wine
told you
stories.
you love them.
I'm down.
Hey, cool. Tell us another story.
Another great story is the Giallo. I love this wine. So this is a little, Tatiana will like, if she was here. So Tatiana is really cool. Tatiana is actually Russian and moved to Tuscany and bought this place. And I'm like, oh, a little hummingbird. And she's like, no, Danny, it's an insect. And I'm like, no, it's a hummingbird. She goes, no, it's an insect. I'm like, okay, fine. It's your wine. You own it. You know it. But it is, she's right. It's an insect. It looks like a hummingbird. And it does the same thing that hummingbirds do. This is a rosé from Sangiovese. And when she told me the price, I said, oh, Tatiana, I love it. I'll buy a case for myself, but nobody will buy it. So she's like, okay, we do this. We make it so that everyone in America will buy it. And we did it. And this rosé, this is the new 2020 Gallo rosé. It is like, I'm going to have you guys try it. Sangiovese is one of the oldest varietals. There's the three main varietals of Italy. The most important are Nebbiolo, Sangiovese, and Aglianico, right? Pretty
Absolutely.
much. Sangiovese actually comes from the word sangue, which is blood, and Jove, which was God, right? So blood of God, Sangiovese. Versus in Sicily, the main wine is Nero Diavolo, blood of the devil. So it kind of difference between Sicilians and mainland Italians. This is made from Sangiovese.
Are you calling me the devil?
Yeah. I was like,
George,
is there
you and I are both from, our ancestors are both from Sicily, so
Yes.
it takes one to know one.
Exactly.
So
This is a rosé of Sangiovese. You got to try this. This is like
Love the gods.
drinking this is a gift you give your body.
blood of the god.
You mentioned something that I ask a lot of folks who do wine, and they stumble on it. And maybe there's no answer to it, but I'm going to ask you. What's the difference between a variety and a varietal?
A varietal is a specific grape. So in Italy, there are 3,300 varietals. Those are fighting words, by the way. There could be a lot more. 3,300 varietals. So Sangiovese is a varietal. Sangiovese is a varietal. Aglianico is a varietal. Cabernet Sauvignon is a varietal. Pinot Noir is a varietal. A variety could be also fighting words, up to interpretation. A variety could be red table wine.
Okay.
It could be sweet wines.
Got it.
Could be imports. It could be domestic, right? I mean,
My
am I wrong?
interpretation
Yep.
that I believed it to be was a variety was the grapes itself, and the varietal would be the part of the region that it was from. So the variety of grapes would be the varietal of the region. Who knows? I don't know. You know what the first word that came to my mouth when I tasted this? Gorgeous. I don't know why.
Gorgeous?
Gorgeous.
Tatiana's going to love
Yep.
that.
Tatiana is a beautiful
Tatiana
person.
is gorgeous.
She's gorgeous. She's gorgeous. Yeah.
So when drinking wine, here are some of the other confusing things to where, and maybe wine doesn't want it to be more approachable. Some people fear wine, right? Going out to what do you order? How do you order it? Just pronouncing some wines can be very confusing. When you approach wines and, hello, how are you, George?
Hello.
What are some just 1, 2, 3 steps that you can do to start to acquire some more wine knowledge? Like when I open it up, does it need to breathe? What wine does? What wine doesn't? Why am I swirling it? Do you hold it at the top? Is that going to make your wine warm? What temperature should you drink wines at? What are some of those kind of just beginning points to where you can dive in to make yourself feel a little bit more comfortable?
You know, those are great questions. Wine should be fun.
Okay.
And there are
Not
sometimes,
intimidating.
you know, it should not be intimidating, although it can be.
Hi,
The
Jay.
thing about our industry is that there's a lot of amazing people in our industry, but when you dive into it and you start studying, sometimes the tendency is to lose yourself in the details, and we should never stop forgetting what George said is wine should be what you love. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, wine. Some wines are meant to be aged a long time. This Chianti and this Rosso is on George's menu. It's fresh. It's wonderful. It's 2015, and it's right now in its drinking zone. The whites are 2020. So, you know, wines need oxygen to express themselves. So they're bottled, and then they're closed off from the world. So there are wines. We've opened some together during our COVID time.
What does oxygenating do to a wine?
It wakes it up.
Oxidizing?
Think about it this
Oxygenating?
way. Think about it this way.
And when you say open up, what does that mean? Open up the flavor, the bouquet?
All of the above.
Okay.
So if I locked you in a bottle for 20 years,
Woo, that stink.
you'd need a few minutes to air out.
Yes, I would.
Let a little little air get to it.
Too much, Greg. I get
little
it.
too much Greg. We're gonna let Greg mellow a little bit
Yeah.
in that glass. We're gonna let some of Greg out of that
Yeah.
glass. We're gonna let him soften a little bit
I love it.
and show his age
Perfect.
by getting a little air to it.
See, that's what wine needs. Truly. That is so approachable the way that you said that.
Yeah, and
Very understandable.
And if you want to learn more about wine, there's drinking wine for fun,
Yeah.
which is just drinking wine.
Yeah.
And if you want to expand your knowledge
Yeah.
a little bit, keep the fun
Yeah.
and drink with a little bit of purpose. Can I taste this,
Yes,
or
yes,
this?
yes.
When I taste this rosé next to this rosé,
Uh-huh.
that's the best way because then you get to compare.
That's
for
fun.
sure. I like this and I
Yeah.
don't like this.
Can I keep this out on my counter overnight? Opened?
Open, no.
What will happen to it?
So, you know, wine goes kind of like this. So, like when you open it, this is a wine that is 6 years old. All right. So as soon as you open it, it's good. But if you give it a minute, it's better. And then it kind of is like it gets to a point where then it's going to go down. So it's already exposed to oxygen when you open it. But if you leave it open overnight, and it's interesting, there are some wines that you can leave open overnight that are really amazing the next day. But there's others, maybe not so much. So generally what I will do, if I've opened a bottle of wine and I haven't consumed the whole bottle, I've maybe had a glass or two, I'll put a cork on it and I'll just keep it anywhere that is cool and dark. Not exposed to daylight, not exposed to heat, not next to a heater, and it's going to be fine for 2 or 3 days. If I want it to be there for a week, then I'll put it in the refrigerator, and that'll slow down the evolution. But wine has an evolution; it goes up like this and down like this. Now, it's what's interesting is, generally speaking, I think George and I have talked about this a lot, is that almost any wine, including sparkling wine, champagne, anything, benefits from being in a decanter. More exposure to oxygen. the older a wine gets, it can be, there's no absolutes in wine, but it can be to its detriment. So if a wine, we've opened some during our COVID days that are wines from the 70s and 80s. You open that, and it's got about a 15, if it's good, still good, it's maybe got a 15 to 45 minute life, and then it starts dying.
Wow.
It's really incredible.
Yeah.
That's what's cool about wine, is like, one is there are no absolute rules, and two is it's fun, and three it's discovery, and four just go with it.
Yeah.
I think that is the coolest thing. I
Right.
love, my wife and I love drinking wine, at home, and it doesn't really matter what it is. We've discovered we like any kind of wine, right? As long as we're having fun and enjoying it together.
Yeah.
And that's the most fun to me. I'm a very curiosity-driven person, and I just love, doing taste tests side by side, or saying, oh man, this wine was really good, just slightly chilled, where this one was, better, room temperature. And it's always different.
It's an exploration
It's always
process.
different. I just think,
Absolutely.
it's so cool that you can have all of that exploratory, stuff around it.
I got one more question for you, but I don't want to hog you because honestly, you're just a wealth of knowledge that I really enjoy tapping into.
I've learned from this guy.
Chef, you have an awesome, amazing palate, and you really develop a lot of menus and work with a lot of food. The crossover between tasting and palates and wine and food, that's what must fascinate you, right? And pairing wines with foods?
I think so, yeah. I think so. I think I speak for both George and I. It's within the same realm. Wine is food, right?
Wine is food.
Wine is food.
Amen. Wine is
food. And I think a lot of us say that, and it's the same as I would say, liquor or beer is food as well.
Sure.
It's all this, but wine is so complex in the way that it's made. And I was fortunate enough to work at a winery a long time ago, making wine, and very little expertise or knowledge there, but it's just so interesting, the different aspects that go into it, and every small little detail in winemaking seems to make just the biggest difference in the flavor, and it goes all over the place.
We have a walking encyclopedia here with us as far as wine goes. What would be the one question that you would want to ask him? We all got one left in us. Get yours ready.
Oh my goodness!
I got a fun challenge for everybody.
Let's go him first.
You want to go him first? I got a good one too. Okay, sorry. What do you got?
So the super fun wine challenge, and you'll dig this with your wife.
I love it.
Find a bottle of wine that you love. Buy 6 bottles or a case of that wine. Open 1 bottle a year for the next 6 years or 12 years.
I love
and
that.
Tell me what changed. Okay? You're going to learn so much about how wine goes up, wine goes down. It changes. That it grows up, it grows old in a bottle. And I've done this many times with many different wines, where I bought a case and I only open 1 bottle a year. And it's amazing how different that exact bottle of wine changes over its lifetime.
I gotta say, Greg, as somebody who drinks a lot of wine, that's going to be really hard to do. I'm going to want to open.
You're going to want to open.
I don't know if I'm going to last a year.
It takes discipline.
It takes discipline.
Basically,
but it's a blast.
write yourself a letter, self-addressed stamp,
right?
Put it in the mail, and then get it a year later.
A future self,
Put a little wine chastity belt on top of it that you can't open.
Right. I'll give the key to you. And
George, you know Danny Keefe really well. Tee him up. Get the best out of him. Give him a question.
I don't know.
Danny's got the best stories. Like, I met Danny years and years ago when we were doing nightclubs and lighting and that kind of the world that we grew up in here in Denver. And when he first started getting into wine, his next door neighbor in Cortona is Frances Maves, who wrote Under the Tuscan Sun. And he brought Frances Maves in, and we did her wine launch in the United States. And I was like, oh, have you met Diane? Oh, yes, I met Diane Lane. I know Francis. I know this. And he's like the mayor of Cortona. And I started hearing all these stories about Danny going through Cortona. And everybody's like, hey, Danny, oh, Danny. Oh, hey, Danny. He's like the mayor of Cortona in Italy. And he's got a great house there. And we've been making plans for the better part of a decade to meet over there. We were actually going to go, plans last year to go before COVID hit. So now we have to wait until the world opens back up again, and we're going to get over to Italy and share some time together and meet some friends and meet his friends over there. And we have half a dozen people that we've been promising we were going to come and visit.
Oh, for sure.
And we just haven't gotten the time.
The lore of Danny. Do they call you
Yeah.
Danger Danny or Dangerous Danny? Or,
No.
Huh?
Danger.
No.
Do good Danny? Come on, there's got to be something in
It's
there.
funny. George says that. Some people say that. I brought some friends of mine there years ago, and they're like, "Oh, everyone in Cortona knows Danny." And so, for some of my friends, went to this tobacco shop, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're friends with Danny." And he's like, "Who's Danny? Who's Danny?" And he's like, and the guy's like, "Oh, that's Kiara's dad, my daughter." Like, my daughter is truly the mayor of Cortona. She knows everybody there. Oh, it's
so
Danny's
cool.
dad, or it's Kiara's dad. But I don't know. The thing about wine and friendship and things like that is like, this is the honest truth. I love people. I love people. I love wine, and that's a good start to almost every single day. Like, George talks about this kind of lightly, but I mean, George has been my friend through the worst of times and the best of times, and he's the guy that I want to celebrate with, and he's the guy I want to cry on his shoulder with. But like during COVID, like there's times, I mean, George's restaurant is shut down, and I'm just like, how do I support my friend? And he's like, bring a bottle of wine over,
Yeah, I
I'll
was
make a
gonna
pizza.
say. Yeah.
And so we sit outside there, and I go deep in my cellar, and we sit there and we just talk about
Those
life.
are some of the best days where we got together and tried to just have a normal day with, like there wasn't COVID.
Yeah, and the
there was
wine kind
nothing
of
more precious
made
to
you
me.
feel normal again for
Yeah.
a half a
Yeah.
month. Yeah.
To have a great
Do you
bottle
have
of
yours?
wine.
That's amazing. I guess a question, and I thought we were going there for a second, is, Danny, do you have, and George, do you have a way that you quickly, easily describe to people how to best pair wine with food?
Great question.
Yeah, how to best
Where do you
pair
start?
wine with food.
Yeah.
We keep talking about all these, how to, make it easy on people. I have my
Do you-
answers, and I think we're going to be very similar.
Do you
on that.
complement wine with the food, or do
Yeah.
you do the antithesis of the flavor of that wine
Contrast,
with the food?
complementing.
Yeah. How do you approach food and pairing?
I think you can absolutely do both. But when in doubt, one of the things I've learned that's foolproof over the years is if you pair the wine with the food of that region,
Yeah.
years and years of history, they somehow got it right. Because when they making wine in a region for 400 or 500 years,
Yeah.
and the food from that region
Yeah.
has been pretty the same for 400 or 500 years, they match up pretty well.
Here, I got to put my hand.
What about
up.
popcorn?
Oh,
What do you pair with popcorn?
It
Champagne?
depends on
I
the
would. I
popcorn.
was going to say I would pair this.
So
Yeah.
George,
Sparkling.
right here,
what,
yeah.
what I heard,
with truffle salt or without
Yes,
truffle
exactly.
salt.
Yeah.
some of the indigenous ingredients translates into food, and that terroir transcends from wines to food to anything that's being grown in the ground. And you're saying if it's from the indigenous from that region,
Yeah.
they're probably going to pair well together.
San Marzano tomatoes, Vesuvius
Got it.
soil,
Okay.
Aglianico, Vesuvius soil, Neapolitan pizza and Aglianico. You can't go wrong.
that-
Or Fiano.
Yeah, or
This
Fiano.
is the lane I like to
Greco
be in
Cattuso?
right here. Tell me about this wine, then I'll give you my last question for you.
This is the Rosso Toscana. It's here at Pizza Republica by the glass. It's Merlot, Cab, Sangiovese, Syrah. So one Italian indigenous grape, and then three varietals from France. She takes the Merlot and the Syrah, which are very fruity varietals. She ferments them at the coldest possible temperature, which is 20 degrees Celsius. And that is going to preserve that beautiful fruit. Mm-hmm. She does a cold soak before that to preserve the integrity of it.
Flavor lock.
Flavor lock. When she's bringing it in from the vineyard, she's protecting from oxygen, which instantly changes the grapes.
full CO2 wash.
Full CO2 wash.
Wow.
Middle of the night, only on a full moon. Crazy, right? And then, or as close to a full moon as possible because of the because of the timing.
Yeah.
And then brings it in, and then the Sangiovese and the Cab, which are more tannic varietals, she's doing it at a high temperature, about 27 degrees Celsius. And then everything goes into the big neutral because she feels that oak should be a tool and not a weapon. I think over-oaked wines cover a multitude of sins in quality of fruit.
Concur.
So neutral oak, the big ones that they use like in Vino Nobile or in Piedmont, the big tonneau. And she puts them in there, and then after a year, then they blend. They have a blending party where they taste everything, they blend the wines. Then she sticks it in the bottle for another 2 years. All of that for a wine that is $40 on the menu.
Wow.
You know?
That's so
Thank you for
impressive.
sharing.
It's incredible.
Segueing into my last question for you. Again, those of you who watch the Modern Eater Show, this is the best wine segment that we've ever had on here. I want other people to be able to reach out to you. We've got a lot of operators and general managers and restaurant owners, bar owners, to be able to reach out to Danny Keefe from the Grapejuice Group. How can people reach out to you?
Danny at grapejuicegroup.com. You can go to my website, and always happy to talk, always happy to have you come to our office in Cherry Creek. I always have a bottle of wine ready to be opened.
Where in Cherry Creek? I live in Cherry Creek.
100 South Madison.
I live on First and Adams.
Come by, man.
My God.
Good, dude. You can walk to my office.
Oh, you mean stumble.
I always have wine there.
You'll stumble back, not
Stumble home.
You'll stumble
I'll
home.
walk there, stumble home. Maybe even
It's
Uber. Who
really
knows?
easy
I'll get
to
real
talk me into
bougie.
opening a bottle of wine. Really easy.
Oh, my God. I got a new friend here. Last one for you. Consumers are very price-driven. When people are going and they're shopping, and probably some folks will go just like you and I up to the King Super Zone, Leedsdale, and see their wine collection, which isn't half bad. Where do you begin? And then, so two-part question. Where do you begin to so you can be fiscally responsible and you want to start and kind of dive into maybe a little elevated wine than you're used to? No more box wine. How do you do that, first of all? And then I've got one last one for you.
You know, I like to find a wine shop. I love the King Supers on Leedsdale. There's a lot of wine shops around the country and around the world that I love. My favorite wine shop on earth is in my town of Cortona.
Okay.
It's called Molosini's. It's in Pizza Republica, and you go in there. Marco Molosini is standing there.
Walk you through it.
Yeah, you walk in, and the place is tiny. It's like the size of this little area. And Marco is like, hey, what do you like?
Yep.
So good.
And then you just start
Go from
talking,
there.
and you go from there.
Do we have any of that here?
We have,
Where?
there's a place in Cherry Creek North called the Vineyard.
Yeah.
And I love it. Nathan and his team there are awesome. Cliff is the owner there. He's a beautiful human being. And you go there and you say, hey, man, I got a $20 bill. And that's what I want to spend.
Oh, how cool.
And
He'll take you
here's
there.
what I love.
Will you do that with me? Will you go down there?
I
We'll
will
do a
go there
segment?
with you.
That'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I will go there with you. And you know what? Nathan is one of my buddies. Like on Mondays, a lot of the industry guys, not a lot, a few of our industry guys, I take off Mondays. We go on a bike ride. And then sometimes they come to my house. I cook for them. We drink wine. Nathan's one of the guys. I guarantee that he would let us do that.
We're coming for you, Nathan. That's it. This table, we're jumping you down there at Cherry Creek. I'm a Cherry Creek native. 48 years, I've seen that whole place grow.
That's changed a hot minute, huh?
It has changed a hot minute. Last one for you. Other than Italian wines, what would a wine from a different region be that you would pick today?
Oh, man. So many that
I've been
love.
getting down on some Argentinian wines.
I love Argentinian wines. It's great. You know, a lot of Argentina was a lot of Mendoza people are Italian immigrants. And I like those wines, but if it's not Italy, what really calls me, I love Spain. I love Spanish wines, especially from like Aragon, like Old Vine Grenache. I also love French wines. What's not to love about France? Like beautiful people, beautiful food, beautiful wines. Burgundy, when you go there, it's like walking on hallowed ground. It's like you feel every one of your footsteps, and you wind up spending every dime you have on a great bottle of wine. But the great thing is, like beverage, you can travel the world. Like I went with my wife once to Normandy, and we went to a little shop that did Calvados, and I spent there. It's a brandy made from apples. I spent like 2 hours there, like getting freaky with Calvados. So, the world is amazing, and that's what's great about a great wine shop is you can go there and you can travel the world in a wine shop and just learn.
I'm going to travel the world through wine with Danny. I got to cheers you right now.
Cheers, my brother.
I know you got a hard stop, places to be. Thank you so much, George. What a wonderful segment.
Cheers.
Please set up our next
Cheers
guest.
to you
They're going
guys.
to be on the show.
Oh, no, basta, non è possibile.
It's called-
Non è
That's like
possibile per me
farm box
così.
food.
You
Yes,
gotta
sir.
have wine in your glass.
Some of the coolest mushrooms, and really a cool story behind what they're doing. sustainable agriculture out of a shipping container.
We're going to learn about that next as we continue. It's Pizza Republica in the Landmark, and I'll tell you what, I just love this business. It is such a staple to Colorado. Also, we have Pizza Republica downtown. There's some great things that'll be going on there. All-Star Baseball weekend. It's more than a weekend. It's a week, right?
It's a full week.
I know.
The Major League Baseball experience at the convention center.
We'll give you an update on what'll come for that. But all's well in the world, and it's the reason for the season. Go out there and support your local restaurants and come to a place like this because you're going to get that full experience between food and beverage program. It all comes together for a wonderful experience. Thank you, George Eater. We'll be right back in a flash. The Modern Eater Show continues. Thanks, Danny.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.